Welcome to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder and CEO of Choice Juicery, author of Plant Food is Medicine, and naturally a health, wellness, and mindfulness enthusiast. I believe that happiness is a choice, and I built my company upon this ethos. This show is a platform where we will discuss all things health, wellness, and mindfulness in hopes of inspiring you further on your journey. We will be sharing inspiring stories, health, wellness, and mindfulness hacks, as well as anything else pertaining to living your best choice life. My hope is that you may hear something on every episode of this podcast that will genuinely be of value in your life. Welcome back to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder and CEO of Choice Juicery and author of Plant Food is Medicine, an incredible cookbook with over 100 gluten-free and plant-based recipes. This episode, as well as every other episode, is sponsored by Choice Juicery. So if you want to support this podcast, you can do so by visiting us online at choicejuicery.com and shopping our wide array of products that we are now shipping nationally. A great way to boost your health and wellness routine. So go check out what we have to offer on there. Also, if you're local to San Diego or if you happen to be visiting, we have 6 locations here in San Diego and 1 up in Orange County in San Clemente. So 7 here in Southern California. So another way to support the show is pop on into one of our shops and treat yourself to something amazing and support this endeavor while you're at it. Today's guest, Meghann Powers, is a internationally and nationally certified hypnotherapist. She experienced hypnotherapy at a retreat in Tuscany, Italy. It was a women's retreat back in 2018, and she had such an incredible experience that she decided to study the modality and become a practitioner herself. I'm excited to chat with her about all things hypnotherapy. What can hypnotherapy do for us in our health and wellness journey? What are the potential benefits of doing hypnotherapy? What kinds of things can you treat with hypnotherapy? I'm curious about her personal experience with it, but also curious to know what she's seen in her years as a practitioner with the modality. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to her about it. I have a little bit of experience, limited, with hypnotherapy myself. A couple years back, had a few sessions, and I've been always intrigued by Brian Weiss' work with past life regression. So curious, I'm not sure if that's anything that she even does, but I'm curious to talk to her a little bit more about that and find out what her experiences have been. And hopefully you get something valuable out of this episode. I know I'm very much looking forward to it. Meghann Powers, thank you so much for joining us on the Choice Lifestyle Podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So we connected on Instagram, and I was automatically intrigued because you are a hypnotherapy practitioner, and I have limited experience with hypnotherapy. In the intro, I kind of explained my limited experience with it, but I've always been intrigued by it. I saw a hypnotherapist a couple years back, and we didn't really resonate. So I didn't actually follow through. I was explaining to the audience that it's just like with any kind of modality. If you go see a therapist, a breath work, teacher, or, hypnotherapist, you kind of have to have chemistry with your therapist. And I didn't,
Right.
and so I never followed through. So I don't have a ton of personal experience, but I've read a lot of books about it. I've had friends with incredible experiences. So I'm excited to dive in and talk all about the modality. But before we get there, I'd like to just start by sharing your story with the audience. I know you were in Tuscany in 2018. Take us back there and tell us kind of your experience that led you to becoming a practitioner.
Yeah. So I was at this point in my life where I had had this relationship that had gone south. And I realized after that I was living my life a little bit more for this person and for other people, as opposed to living my life for myself and what my heart really wanted to do. So that was when I made this decision. I'm going to go on this women's retreat. It was focused on astrology and positive psychology, a little bit of woo-woo stuff.
Okay, I can
That
dig.
my yeah, that my former this former person in my life had always kind of criticized those type of things. So I'm like, I'm going to do what I feel passionate about. So I joined this women's group. It was a 6-month online course. And we learned how to work with the cycles of the moon and all of this really amazing stuff, did a lot of meditation and supported each other in their goals. And in the middle of the retreat, So it was online, and then we met in Tuscany, and we
Wow.
stayed in this old monastery for a week. And our leader, she brought her own personal hypnotherapist. So she
Wow.
did some group sessions for us in this old monastery in Tuscany, which was super amazing. And then we had the option to do a one-on-one session, which of course I did. I'm like, I've always been interested in psychology and the mind body connection. So I'm like, you can rewire my subconscious mind. Yes, like sign me up. I'm definitely, there was like no question in my mind that I was going to try this. So I did this session, and it was a regression type of session.
Okay.
And it was really fascinating. So I uncovered some memories that I happened before, like when I was like 3 years old, that I had no
Wow.
idea about. And it really just linked like my behavior. Like I had certain tendencies and did things a certain way. And once I had that session, it just became really clear. It connected the dots for me. I was like, okay, so this is the way I am the way I am. This is why maybe I loved taking like really long showers. I used to get in trouble from my parents. They'd be like they would knock on the door. They're like, your time is up. Like, get out of the shower. And I was like, okay, well, now this all makes like logical sense as to why I just did these things the way that I did. And my teacher, so I ended up going to this instructor's school, and she has this incredible story of how she helped a United Nations peacekeeping soldier who was paralyzed on the left hand side of his body. And she was able to help him doing this, having him close his eyes, do this visualization. And he moved his finger for the first time since he had been paralyzed, and helped him break through that
No
paralysis.
way. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's incredible.
Which is, yeah, I was like, this is the closest thing to magic
Yeah.
that I'm like, yes, sign me up. This is how I want to help people, in my life, use their own mind
Wow.
to overcome obstacles that seem impossible. So
That is
that
really
was pretty much
incredible.
yeah, that's how I found it. I went to my first school in Florida with that instructor.
Okay.
And then later on, I went to another school in Bali for a few months and learned some additional techniques as well. And then quit my corporate job and started doing hypnotherapy full time.
Wow. How long ago was that you quit your corporate job and followed this unconventional path?
Yeah, 2021 is after the pandemic. So the pandemic, it changed. I really sat down and thought about my life,
Yeah.
and I wanted to live my life as if no one is guaranteed tomorrow, right? With
Right.
all of the people passing with COVID, it was like nobody knows how much time they have. So I wanted to live my life as if today was my last day. I want to follow my heart, do things I'm passionate about, which is helping people and
Mm,
also seeing the world. Those were like the two main things that I
that's
wanted to do.
beautiful. I saw that you were certified both nationally and internationally. So I'm curious what led you to Bali, and I know you said you were learning additional techniques over there, but what was that school like? Whereabouts in Bali were you? And what did you take away from that experience?
Yeah, it was in Umala, Bali. So it's kind of like central.
Okay.
And the reason I chose that school was at the time, so I felt like I needed a little bit more than what I got at my first school.
Okay.
So I was following this instructor on Instagram, and they had one of the only programs that had in-person offerings, which is really
Mm,
important to me because it was post pandemic and everything was
right.
online. And this is something that you need well, one, I enjoy talking with people in person and
Yeah.
community. And then also to practice these techniques, I just really wanted to do an in person course. And then tying in Bali, I had been there for a yoga retreat a few years prior, 2019, I believe, and I loved it. So I'm like,
Okay.
no better place to
Yeah.
go and learn hypnotherapy than in like the land of spiritual healing.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, one of the things that you said that I liked was that you learned like the regression techniques, which when
Yes.
I did hypnotherapy, and I shared a little bit of this already, but when I did hypnotherapy, God, this must have been like 2020. The practitioner, I was really excited. I had been learning about regression therapy, and I'd also learned about like past life regression. I read all the Brand Wise books, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like fascinated by
Mm-hmm.
that regression, like that idea, if you will. And so when I was excited, I signed up for this guy. I just found him online. He was local. And then I went in there and he was like anti-regression. He was a hypnotherapist and had been for like 20 plus years, but he believed that he had seen in his time, I should say, that people that he had regressed, both past life regression and also early childhood, like trauma regression. I don't know if I'm using the proper technique or terms,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yes.
essentially taking people back to their early childhood traumas.
Mm-hmm.
He had seen that some people experience destabilization in their personality as a result of that. And so he was like really into this like real gentle approach. It was more like being set through like a guided meditation and visualization, which I do a lot of on my own anyways. And
Mm-hmm.
with therapy, I tend to be very like, let's get to the root of it. Let's go. Like, I love somatic
Mm-hmm.
release breath work where people are screaming and
Mm-hmm.
crying and releasing. Like, I love, like, let's go back there. Let's face it. Let's move through it.
Yes.
So
Yeah, you
I'm
got to
really
heal
into
it to feel it to heal
totally
it.
feel it to
Yeah.
heal it. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's been my experience, anyways. And so I didn't, while it was therapeutic, what he was offering, it just didn't really resonate with me. So I love to hear
Mm-hmm.
that you are kind of on that same page of, practicing
Yes.
regression. What's your experience been like that? Can you share like some of the things that you've uncovered maybe with yourself or even with some clients, obviously without naming names, but like, can you
Yes,
share a
of
little bit
course.
about, what you've seen, what's possible with this type of regression therapy?
Yeah, I find that regression is super powerful. And I've only had one client that I had her come back and we did a second session because she needed a little bit more. So
Mhm.
sometimes to me it's like it's almost like cleaning out a wound. And you can, yeah, you can say all these positive affirmations and kind of do that type of more gentle stuff, but if you don't clean out the wound and find the root of the issue,
Mhm.
it's not going to be as effective, right? You want to clean out all
Totally.
the old dirt first.
Yeah.
So I find I pretty much started out doing, my teacher in Bali, she was very root cause, so she structured these sessions where we go through all these different techniques, but it's a regression to the root cause. So we usually will start with a feeling that someone's experiencing. So if you have anxiety, for example,
Mhm.
right? That is usually linked to a particular experience, a belief that got created a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so going back to that and changing the perspective, cleaning it out, having them do emotional release around that and
Mhm.
process those old feelings is really beneficial to cleaning out that wound. And then you can layer in like that positive, like guided
Absolutely.
imagery and like you are everything that you need to be type
Yeah.
of stuff. But without
Yes.
going back and cleaning it out, I think it's the most rapid way to see results. So a lot of my clients,
Mhm.
I've worked with people who have insomnia or procrastination or just want to lose weight, relationship issues, pretty much fear of earthquakes, all sorts of issues. And you
Wow.
have to really go back and find where it started to begin to like
Mhm.
heal that. And I'll have people do one session and they'll be like, I feel like I don't need, I'm good. Like, for example, I had a girl who was working on relationship issues and she just had no motivation to date. She really wanted a partner, but she didn't want to date. And
Mm.
so when we go back and find out where this belief came from, these feelings, she had a different type of emotional connection. So when she was dating, she wanted to have an emotional connection with someone. She didn't want to be. She took the physical aspect of dating like much slower. So she created this belief of like, why would someone want to date me when they
Mhm.
could date someone else? But we
Wow.
really, so that actually got created a long time ago and we had to go back and clean that out. And then after one session she was like, she decided to create a profile. She
Wow.
actually met some guy, was dating him. They have since like broken up, but her motivation completely
Yeah.
shifted. She just accepted like that this is a part of her that she can include in the dating. So yeah, it's really powerful. I think the fastest route to, getting a shift in
Absolutely.
your behavior.
I love, you said a couple of things that really resonated with me. One was like going back to where that memory was first created. I did a process called the presence process. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a book, but I always hate calling it a book because
Mm-hmm.
it's so much more than a book. It's like a 10-week process, and there's prerequisite reading in the book. And anyways, and there's a lot of breath work and guided, mantras and things. It kind of puts you in your own, I don't want to say it's like self hypnosis,
Mm.
but in some ways that was
Yeah.
my experience of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things that they teach you in the book is like whenever during the process you get really triggered, like things will trigger you like crazy. You're like, no, I'm good. This isn't going to happen. And then you're like week 3 and everyone's just like, you're just freaking out about everything. You're like, what happened to me? Almost a little bit destabilizing in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
but the cool thing is that you're taught to say, when have I felt this before? Like whenever you're feeling triggered, you're like, when have I felt this before? And then you go back to the closest memory. And then it's like, okay, when did I feel this before then? When did I feel this before then? And you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
access, whereas I feel like hypnotherapy is like kind of a direct shot. This is a much longer process, but very similar in that way that you're going back to that original wound where that belief was born, that's creating this belief system that you're living out of now. And also something else you said about, like saying all the positive, like you can meditate every day, you can say all the positive affirmations, you can do all this stuff. But if you don't go back to where that thing is still stored there, this woman, I don't even know what she was. Maybe she was like a medium or something. She was like a world renowned medium that was at this intention setting party years ago. I remember her telling this story in the group as we were all getting ready to like set our intentions and stuff. And she was saying, it's like there's a pile of shit sitting in the living room, and you're like
Mm-hmm.
throwing poopery at it, and you're like, spraying it with perfume, and you're like,
Yes.
that's what all the like, all the positive affirmations and all the,
Why am I not
meditation in the
manifesting
world,
this?
you've
Yeah.
got to get rid of the shit. Like you have to remove the shit from the
Yes.
room. You can't get there from there. And so
You can't
that
cover it up.
reminds me
Yeah.
exactly, you can't cover it up. You can try, but there's a reason why you're not accessing the things you want to access. There's a reason why you're not having the relationships, or you're not having the success, or whatever it is, the health, whatever it is. You're vibrating on some level with something, from
Mm-hmm.
early programming, and you got to get to the root of that. And there's a lot of different modalities to do that, but I think
Mm-hmm.
hypnotherapy can be a really powerful way to do that. I'm excited. I feel like after talking to you, I'm like, I need to sign up for some sessions with you
Yeah, girl.
so
I
I
will
can actually
totally. We should do
experience
one.
the real deal. Good.
We'll give you one. Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. I love
We're
it.
gonna go. We're gonna face the demons, and yeah.
I love
If
it.
anything, the clients that I work with, and I think it's you want to talk to each individual, and this may not be the approach for everybody, but
Yeah,
if they're willing to face it, and then I think it's the way to go. And as long as they know.
exactly.
Yeah. So typically after a session too, there's like a whole integration period. So it can take 1 to 2 weeks for you to totally integrate all of the shifts and changes and start to feel like this new identity and
I
like
love
stepping into
that.
that.
That makes a
So
lot of
it's,
sense. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
The therapist that I had worked with a couple of times, I remember when I was first meeting with him, he told me a story because I was like asking those questions, like, what can this do for you? Like, what does hypnotherapy actually do? And I remember him telling me this story of a woman that he worked with that she came in to see him because she wanted to quit smoking. And she was like a 2 packs a day kind of smoker. And I don't remember, I'll slaughter the story, but the premise of it is that, through uncovering like early childhood stuff, so her parents were like her best friends in the world. Like her mom and dad,
Mm,
she did everything with them. She didn't have any real friends. Her friends were her parents. It was like the three of them,
mm,
like
mm,
they were in a bowling league together, and they had dinner 5 nights a week. And like her whole world revolved around her parents. And her parents were also smokers, but not as heavily as she was. And she had made this like subconscious deal that she didn't want to be alive without her
mhm,
parents. So she was like subconsciously
mm.
killing herself at a rate that would take her before her parents died because
Oh,
she didn't want to.
wow.
Isn't that crazy? I don't know if that's something
Yes.
that makes
It
sense.
is
Obviously,
crazy.
you're good.
Yeah, it is crazy, but it totally makes sense. And I will say, this is one of like the most powerful things that I've learned working with clients doing this type of work is once you see, this person's like their inner mind and where these beliefs and feelings got created, just like that story that you said, everything makes sense. You're like, oh, okay, so now I see, like, it makes sense. Like, she had everything, it like connects all the dots. And it's like, so just going about and having that new perspective that if someone, whatever they're doing in their life, whatever behaviors they have, or
Mm-hmm.
the way that they're acting or feeling, there's always a reason that would make so much sense if you knew the whole story.
Totally.
So just like that, I think you're able to just see people with a little bit more compassion.
Absolutely.
Maybe those people that that you wouldn't be drawn to
Yeah.
organically or whatnot. It's like there's
Absolutely.
a reason and everything, that they are have made the choices that they've made.
Agreed.
A lot of these beliefs and thoughts that are created such a long time ago, you're not even aware of them. Like
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't walking around aware of this, right? I would
Mm-mm.
assume. So it's so deep in the unconscious, and that's why I love working with this modality, using the unconscious, which is driving 95% of our life and our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
feelings, behaviors. Because you're not thinking that you're walking around with this,
Mm-mm.
contract. So
No
it's a lot
way.
of it is just identifying it and discovering
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm like, okay, now I can change it now that I see it.
Exactly. I've experienced that on a degree with breath work. I lead like somatic
Mm-hmm.
release breath work, and I do it because like you, I had my first experience with it, and I was just forever by the experience. And then I was like, I want to do this. I want to help people with this. So I do it on the side. It's kind of like a side gig, fun thing that I love and passionate about. But one of the things I experienced the very first time I accessed somatic release breath work, because it really does put you in that subconscious state, and you're able to
Mm-hmm.
really see stuff you didn't see before. So for me, I realized that I was harboring shame from an incident that happened to me when I was a 14-year-old little girl, with the perspective of being a 40-year-old woman now, at the time 39 or 38, I don't even remember it now. But as an adult experiencing, it took me back to that incident that happened, and it made me see the shame that was born from that, and how I'd been carrying it my whole life, and that unfairly I was
Mm-hmm.
projecting it towards this 14-year-old little girl who never deserved it. And so, like, I had no idea I was walking around with shame. And when you have these subconscious things inside of you you're not aware of, they're running your life. They're running your decisions. They're
Yes.
running decisions
Yeah.
about who you're in relationship, who you're friends with, what you allow in your life, how you respect yourself and others, what you believe you're capable of in the work, world, and
Mm-hmm.
everything, every capacity, every area of your life is being run by that subconscious belief system. And so it's amazing that there's these modalities that are coming out
100%.
today. Well, they've been around for a long time, but we're becoming more and more aware of them. One of the blessings I think of the modern
Yeah.
age and technology and all of this stuff is that we have access to so much information. It can be for better or for worse, but I like to think that we can use it in a powerful way, and learning about all this stuff through these things. Like, here we are talking on a podcast that's going to be on Spotify and YouTube, and everyone's going to have access to this information. And so I think it's a powerful time in the world where we're just waking up to all of these amazing tools that are out there. We don't have to be the way that we have
Mm-hmm.
always been. We can challenge that, and we can become whatever we want to be when we're willing to
Right.
go in and do that work. So super cool.
Exactly. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and it is really cool because there are so many modalities that work on the same thing, like breath work, psychedelics. There's so many different
Yeah.
paths, and whatever is, my one of my friends, she was doing traditional therapy, and she's like, I'm really curious about hypnotherapy. And I'm like, it goes really great, together. You don't have to choose one
Yeah.
or another, it's like,
Exactly.
I think they're all whatever you're called to do,
Yeah.
and I think they can work really beautifully together. I know there's a practitioner that does hypno breath work where she
Oh,
really
wow.
does deep, yeah. So, yeah, I like you said, I think all these different modalities to really discover kind of how you got to where you were, and then make the appropriate shifts, actually let go of the stuff that you need to let go of, with
Hmm.
and more than just like saying a simple mantra or whatnot. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So take me through like a session. What does a session look like? And take our listeners through that. If someone were to come and see you and get a session with you specifically, what does that look like? What does that entail? What's the timeline? What can they expect?
Sure. Yeah. So the first session, I usually will encourage them to do like a root cause session when we
Mhm.
do the regression. So if we would do that, the time frame would be about 3 hours. And we would first
Okay.
just sit down and talk about, in their conscious mind, talk about what they're experiencing. I would listen to like the language that they're using and really identify what language and what feeling that they want to work on. So
Mhm.
once we identify that and have clear goals set out for them, then we would do just a guided meditation essentially. So the thing with hypnotherapy, it's like doing regular therapy. There's techniques that I actually use that are like gestalt and inner child work that you can do in a regular therapy session. The only difference is we're doing it in a different brainwave state. Just like breath work, it takes you into a different brainwave state. So we're getting into the alpha theta brainwave state, which is very similar to like a meditative state. It's that state
Okay.
that it's very natural. We all go into it when we wake up in the morning, when we go to sleep at night. Even if you're, watching a movie, your brainwaves start to slow down if you get relaxed. So it's just a little bit deeper than that, just getting you nice and relaxed. And then we start to do the therapy. And as far as the regression, I use it's a technique called the affect bridge. And so we objectify this feeling that you're having. So if you're having anxiety,
Hmm.
we make it into an actual thing. So we make it tangible. We give it a color and a shape and a feel, like a weight and a texture. And then as we do that, it makes it easier to trace that all the way back to the first time
Wow.
that they ever felt that feeling in their body. So wherever we land, we're there and we begin to create the context around the situation. There's a trauma that happened somewhere. So that's my job to guide you and lead you there. We bring in like the adult you. There's a lot of inner child work. There's some forgiveness if it's appropriate. Nothing is ever forced.
Hmm.
Um, and really just it's a process of shifting your perspective. So
Okay.
like in your experience where you were able to see that you were carrying the shame of this 14, projecting it onto this 14-year-old girl
Hmm.
when it really had nothing to do with her, right?
Right.
She was, just in this circumstance. So we release the emotions. So we do some breathing, to release the emotions. I have them speak it out. I encourage them if they feel like so inclined to like move their body in whatever way feels
I love it.
appropriate and natural to them. So just releasing those emotions and then changing the whole perspective. And once they're able to see, okay, maybe this issue was actually, it was something to do with my mother, and she was just so overwhelmed with her life. She wasn't able to meet my needs or whatever it was. They're able to like detach, and it's less personal, and it's not about them.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with who they are. And
Yeah.
then we go in and we put in like, okay, who do you want to be? That type of thing. So it's a pretty lengthy process, but it's like 6 months, 9 months of traditional talk therapy when you start to
Exactly.
use your imagination and get into the
Yeah.
subconscious. And yeah, so I encourage people also to like use your imagination. If something doesn't come up, like that's using
Hmm.
that imagination is the bridge to the subconscious. So
Beautiful. This is so exciting. Well, I can't wait to experience it myself. And I think that the potential is so huge. I mean, so many people, like you said earlier, there's a lot of different modalities, there's a lot of different tools out there, and you kind of got to figure out like what calls to you. And I feel like I've used them all. I've done EMDR. I've, worked with Shipibo shamans in the Amazon. I've done breath work. I've done so much stuff, traditional talk therapy. I attempted hypnotherapy, but I think I had the wrong facilitator. And so I feel like there's just so much to uncover, and it obviously depends on your experience and how much you want to hack your own life, but I feel like our potential is unlimited when we're willing to do this work. And so I'm personally excited to add this modality into the many, different things that I practice and use to heal from what I had was a
Yeah.
really traumatic childhood. So super cool. Thanks for sharing so much about this with us. I'm really excited. I want to dive in to learning even more about it and the potentials, but it sounds like the way that you guide doing that regression is like exactly what I've been looking for. I think it's like the way, in my opinion, to really
Yeah.
uncover. So,
Yeah.
really, really excited
Yeah, I
to work
agree.
with you at some point. So cool.
Yeah, I would love to.
So, how do people connect with you
Definitely.
if they want to learn more about you? If they want to maybe sign up for a session with you, what ways can they find you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way would probably just be social media. So,
Okay.
at Megan Powell, I am not as great in the business world as I am with the actual modalities. So, some of the business stuff, comes a little bit slower for me. But if you could connect with me there, just send me a message, and then we can find a time that works and set up a session. And I
Awesome. And
also
it's
do
and it's
free.
at it's EGHANNPOW, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, just to
Correct.
make sure because I think there's a
Exactly.
few different ways to spell that name and I want them to be able to find you.
Yes.
Very
Definitely.
cool.
Definitely. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, and I do like 15-minute consults as well. So if you just want to connect and see if this is a good fit for you, we can definitely do that. And I work with people anywhere from ages 8 and older. So I recently started working more
Okay.
with children, and it's not as intense as you would for an adult. It is a
Right.
little bit more light, but it's super fun, and I've had some really amazing results working with kids. So that's also an option if people
That's
have children
incredible.
that.
Yes, all kinds of challenges with kiddos. My little one had severe sleep issues from the time that she was born
Mm-hmm.
until like 4 or 5 months ago. She never slept through a night in her life, and
Oh
she's
my
7.5 years
gosh.
old. So it wasn't until she was 7 years
Oh my
old
gosh.
she would not sleep through the night unless she was next to me and touching me. Like she could not.
Mm.
It was the wildest thing. And I tried everything, went to the doctors, tried all the homeopathic supplements. Like I could get her to fall asleep in her own bed. But the moment I left, it's like she just knew I wasn't there anymore and she could not stay down and
Mm.
she'd wake up and just be traumatized throughout the night, the rest of the night, afraid that I was going to leave again. She just did not know how to
Mm.
settle in her own body when she thought that I wasn't going to be next to her. And I tried everything that you can imagine and nothing was working. I finally I literally like hired a shaman. I was like, okay, maybe this is like something from, I don't know. I'll do anything at this
Yes, from
point.
before. Yeah,
Right. I
exactly.
was like, I didn't know much about hypnotherapy at the time, or I would have also tried that modality. But yeah, she did one session with this person, and a lot of it was like tracking the fear in her body and like blowing her
Mm.
fears into stones. And like he did this whole thing with her. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know, is it placebo? Is it real?
Right.
I don't know. But
It
what I
doesn't
do
even
know,
matter.
it doesn't matter because the crazy thing is that night was the first night she slept the night in her entire life in her own
Ah,
bed. And ever since then, every single night for months, I kept thinking like, this is going to fade, right? Like at some point it's going to
oh,
revert. Like, it's
mhm.
been 7 years of me not sleeping because she doesn't sleep unless she's next to me or, on me.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I'm like, it's like a newfound freedom I have in my life where it's like, I can put her to bed at a normal hour and I can be like, wow, I have like 2 or 3 hours to myself in the evening uninterrupted and she's just down for the night. And this is like, I mean, I have 3 kids and I had 2 older ones and they didn't have any challenges like this. This is so different from anything I've experienced,
Yeah.
but in one session. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's the power of,
What a
you know,
miracle. Yeah.
thinking outside the box, like trying new things. Don't knock it
Hmm.
till you've tried it. Some people think that this stuff
Right.
is woo woo, even hypnotherapy, which so many, licensed therapists use hypnotherapy, world renowned therapists. It's a very incredible tool, just like so many other things are. And I feel like you just kind of have to like, not, don't judge it, try it first, before you have a,
Yeah.
an idea of it. And even if you have in the past, like me, I tried hypnotherapy with a facilitator that wasn't really a good fit for me. And I didn't have, a big experience with it, but I still, here I am a couple years later, still wide open. Like, let me try it again. Let me try it with someone new. I feel like you have to be open and you can't knock these things, and you've got to be willing to try different stuff,
I,
So
I agree. And that is one thing that if you come as a client, you do have to be somewhat open-minded. So I don't, I'm not going to force you to do anything. So it's just really, if you're open to the process, then it can work. If you're like not open to it, like
exactly.
if you come and you're like, I want to stop smoking, but like, I don't think that this is like my wife wants me to stop smoking and I don't want to
Mhm.
stop smoking that and just make me do it. That's something that I don't do. So you
Good
do
for
have to
you.
be open to the process and willing to, when I say close your eyes, and begin to relax deeply, it's your choice. How deeply are you going to relax? Are you going to let go? Are you
Absolutely.
going to
I
keep,
see
like,
that
you can
in
open your eyes
yeah.
whenever you want,
Yeah.
so
I see that in breath work a lot. Like, when I lead classes, I see the people who are like really going all in and the people that just won't, and you try to give them a little guidance and they're just like, this is it. This is as deep as I'm going, and it's like, that's okay. That's beautiful. I'm glad you're here. But, it's like, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like they have to want to drink the water. They have to want to do the work. They have to
Mhm.
go all in. They have to have an open mind. They have to believe in the tool that they're trying. If they don't, it's going to be a lot harder for them
Mhm.
to experience any healing from it. So I agree with
It
that completely.
is. It is. And even from my experience too, I can say that if you do have some resistance, it actually makes it harder to quote unquote clean out that wound. If you don't want to feel all those feelings, then when we're done, you might still have some of them
Hmm.
in you, and it will make it more uncomfortable for you in the long run, as opposed to
Yeah.
just feeling it and letting it get released. So
Feeling it
there's a
fully.
reason. There's a reason why it's, I want you to have the best results and to feel the best. So
Hmm. Back to the
yeah.
presence process, Michael Brown always says, the only way out is through, especially with the process. Like,
Yes.
once you start the process, you cannot go back. And if you do, like, if you stop midpoint, like, life's going to
It's
be a little
worse.
uncomfortable. It's actually worse. So it's like, you have to be all in committed to seeing it all the way through. And it gets really uncomfortable and it gets really hard. But on the other side, it's really beautiful, the
Yes.
healing that you can experience. But if you're going to start it, you have to finish it. What is that saying? The cave you fear to enter holds all the treasure you seek. It's like, you
Hmm.
gotta be willing to go in there into that dark, scary cave. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you get there and you're like, ah, like, forget it, I'm out of here. But
Yeah.
you can't bail out, because if you do, you're gonna be experience. Like, you've brought it all up. And now you've got to deal with
Yeah.
it. So you kind of have to see it
Yeah.
through and finish it. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially people that have it so buried subconsciously. They're not even aware. I was doing a breathwork session for somebody not that long ago. And I remember, like, it was just like, so he was so locked in, and he just he did not want to go there. And the moment that, like, something
Hmm.
started to come up, it was wild. He's a grown man, like, ex-military, big tough guy. And all of a sudden was like, he was like, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And he just shut down. Like, he was like, mm-mm. Like, it was like, it brought something up that was really scary for him. And he just shut down and stuffed it back down. And at some point in life, the body will present the bill. At some point in life, these things that we're
Yep.
stuffing down, they will come up. You can't keep them
Yep.
down there forever. It's like plugging the hole in the boat. At some point, another leak is going to come up, and you're going to run out of hands. Like, you at some point, whether it
Yes.
manifests as anxiety or insomnia or depression or
Hmm.
a disease or whatever, it's like, at
Right.
some point, the stuff that we're harboring inside is going to come up. So it's better, just face it. It's better to just
Yes.
dive
Yeah.
right in and,
It is.
handle it,
You don't want, it's either going to be, yeah, I'd rather do it now than get the bill at the doctor's and some
Same,
diagnosis. It's,
same,
yeah.
same.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like
Yeah.
we're on the same page with all that stuff. Well, thank you so much, Meghann. It's been absolutely
Thank
lovely chatting
you.
with you. And I'm going to follow up with you
So
and get
nice to
myself
connect.
signed up for a session. And then maybe we'll have to have a follow up afterwards so I can share with everybody what it was like.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful.
I love it. I
Wonderful.
love it. Okay, super
Looking
cool. Well,
forward to it.
have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks,
And thanks
Nastasha.
again for being here.
Thank you too. Have a beautiful day. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review so we can reach more people. I might even share your review on future episodes. If you go to the link in the show notes, you can find and sign up for our newsletter so that you're notified when a new episode comes out. You can support this show by purchasing anything from the Choice Juicery online shop at choicejuicery.com. Or, of course, if you're lucky enough to live in San Diego, you can visit any of our 7 locations here in San Diego and Orange County. And please feel free to connect with me on social media at Nastasha McKeon. That's NASTASHAMCKEON. Don't forget that extra S. Or you can connect with us at the Choice Juicery Instagram at Choice Juicery. Thanks again for listening in.